Globalization is often portrayed as a mutually beneficial process, but this perspective overlooks its inherent asymmetries. In reality, the benefits of globalization tend to concentrate among advanced economies, while the risks disproportionately affect vulnerable nations. Textbook economics often asserts that free trade and globalization are universally beneficial, citing principles like comparative advantage, economies of scale, and technology transfer as mechanisms that should lift all boats. However, the past 5 years have revealed a glaring asymmetry in how these benefits and risks are distributed. While advanced economies enjoy cheap imports, access to low-cost financing, and profits from technological monopolies, developing countries frequently face the resource curse, where an abundance of natural resources paradoxically leads to slower growth, corruption, and environmental degradation. These nations often become locked into exporting raw materials or single products, leaving them highly exposed to price swings and demand shocks. This disparity challenges the conventional wisdom and calls for a more nuanced understanding of globalization's winners and losers. The asymmetry of gains in globalization is stark. Advanced economies capture the lion's share of rewards through cheap imports, low-cost financing, and profits from technological monopolies. In contrast, developing countries often suffer from the resource curse, where an abundance of natural resources paradoxically leads to slower growth, corruption, and environmental degradation. They become locked into exporting raw materials or single products, leaving them vulnerable to price swings and demand shocks. For example, a country reliant on oil exports may see its economy suffer when global oil prices plummet, while a diversified economy can better absorb such shocks. This concentration of benefits and risks creates a systemic imbalance that undermines the narrative of mutual gain. While the benefits of globalization are skewed towards advanced economies, the risks are shared by all participants. A supply chain disruption in one region can halt production worldwide, as seen during the COVID-19 pandemic when factory closures in Asia caused shortages globally. A financial crisis in one country can spread rapidly through interconnected markets, as demonstrated by the 2008 global financial crisis. Even a virus can travel along trade routes, as the pandemic showed. This interconnectedness means that even the most powerful economies are not immune to shocks. However, the key insight is that the more integrated a country is, the more exposed it becomes to these systemic risks. This concentration of risk, coupled with the uneven distribution of benefits, forms the core of globalization's hidden fragility. To quantify the fragility that arises from deep integration, we can construct a simple index. Fragility equals exposure times dependence, divided by resilience. Exposure measures the proportion of an economy that relies on global trade. Dependence captures how concentrated that trade is in a few products or partners. Resilience is the ability to absorb shocks, such as through fiscal buffers or diversified industries. A higher index indicates greater vulnerability. For instance, a country with high trade-to-GDP ratio, heavy reliance on a single export, and weak fiscal reserves would have a high fragility index. This framework helps explain why some nations are more susceptible to external shocks than others, and why integration alone does not determine fragility. It is the combination of exposure, dependence, and resilience that matters. Vietnam serves as a prime example of deep integration and its consequences. Its trade-to-GDP ratio exceeds 200%, one of the highest in the world, indicating heavy reliance on global trade. When COVID-19 struck in 2020, Vietnam's GDP growth plummeted from about 7% to 2.9%. The pandemic disrupted global demand and supply chains, and as a key node in these networks, Vietnam suffered disproportionately. This illustrates how integration amplifies external shocks. The country's high exposure to global trade meant that when the world economy slowed, Vietnam's economy was hit harder than less integrated nations. This case demonstrates that while integration can bring growth, it also increases vulnerability to global disruptions. Contrast Vietnam with North Korea, a country with minimal global integration. Its trade-to-GDP ratio is negligible, and it has virtually no exposure to global supply chains. While its data is opaque, available evidence suggests it suffered a milder economic contraction during the pandemic. This is not a defense of autarky, but it highlights a paradox: the most connected nations are often the most fragile. North Korea's isolation shielded it from the global economic shocks of COVID-19, whereas Vietnam's deep integration made it more vulnerable. This comparison underscores that integration alone is not a panacea, it comes with trade-offs. While isolation may reduce exposure to external shocks, it also limits access to the benefits of trade, technology, and investment. The key is to balance integration with resilience. The de-risking wave of 2024 to 2026, characterized by friendshoring, nearshoring, and strategic autonomy, is a collective response to the fragility exposed by recent crises. However, de-risking is not free, it involves a trade-off between resilience and efficiency. We can model this as a cost-benefit analysis. The benefit is reduced exposure to geopolitical shocks, as countries seek to diversify supply chains and reduce dependence on rivals. The cost is higher production costs and lost economies of scale, as companies move operations to higher-cost locations. The net effect depends on the probability and magnitude of future disruptions. If disruptions are rare and mild, the costs of de-risking may outweigh the benefits. But if they are frequent and severe, de-risking could be a prudent investment in resilience. The irony of de-risking is that it creates new frictions. Trade barriers, export controls, and subsidies distort markets, raising costs for consumers and businesses. They also create uncertainty, as companies must navigate a patchwork of regulations across different jurisdictions. In trying to reduce one set of risks, we may be amplifying another. For example, a company that moves production from China to Vietnam to avoid tariffs may face higher costs and new logistical challenges. The result is a more fragmented global economy, with lower growth and higher prices. This paradox suggests that de-risking, if not carefully targeted, could undermine the very resilience it aims to achieve. We can formalize the fragility trap. A country's vulnerability is a function of its integration and its lack of resilience. The deeper the integration, the higher the exposure to external shocks. But resilience can mitigate this. The trap occurs when a country is deeply integrated but lacks the buffers to absorb shocks. This is common in developing economies that rely on a single export or have weak fiscal positions. They are caught in a cycle where globalization brings growth but also instability. For instance, a country that exports only oil may experience boom and bust cycles, with growth during high oil prices and recession when prices collapse. Without diversification and fiscal reserves, such a country remains perpetually fragile, unable to escape the trap. Let's compare two archetypes, a deeply integrated economy like Vietnam and a more resilient one like Germany. Vietnam has high integration but moderate resilience. Its trade-to-GDP ratio is over 200%, but its fiscal buffers are limited, and its export base is relatively concentrated in electronics and textiles. Germany also has high integration, with a trade-to-GDP ratio around 80%, but it has high resilience, thanks to strong fiscal buffers and a diversified industrial base. In a crisis, Germany can better absorb shocks through automatic stabilizers and a robust manufacturing sector. This comparison shows that integration alone is not the problem, it's the combination of high integration and low resilience that creates fragility. Building resilience is therefore crucial for countries seeking to benefit from globalization without becoming overly vulnerable. What does this mean for policymakers? First, resilience should be a priority, not an afterthought. This means building fiscal buffers, diversifying export bases, and investing in social safety nets. For example, countries can establish sovereign wealth funds during boom times to cushion downturns. Second, de-risking should be targeted, not blanket. Instead of retreating from globalization, countries should focus on reducing specific vulnerabilities, such as over-reliance on a single supplier for critical goods. Third, international cooperation is still essential. Fragmentation is not a solution, it creates new risks. The goal should be a more resilient globalization, not less globalization. This requires coordinated efforts to strengthen global supply chains, improve crisis response mechanisms, and ensure that the benefits of trade are more equitably shared. Globalization is not a win-win. It is a system that concentrates benefits and risks unevenly. The deeper your integration, the more fragile you become, unless you build resilience. The de-risking wave is a response, but it is not a panacea. It creates new frictions and uncertainties. The real challenge is to design a globalization that is both open and resilient. That means investing in buffers, diversifying economies, and maintaining cooperation. As we navigate this new era, we must ask, who is truly fragile, and who is prepared? The answer will determine which nations thrive and which falter in the face of future shocks. It is a call to action for policymakers, businesses, and citizens alike to rethink the foundations of global economic integration. Markets reward discipline, not certainty. If this analysis helped, like the video and subscribe to DeepQuant. Tell us in the comments which market idea we should test next. Evidence beats noise. Control risk before chasing returns.